The biggest mistake you can make when chatterbait fishing is fishing them like a spinnerbait, and it could be costing you big fish. Before I moved back to the States, when I was in Korea, I caught a lot of fish on a spinnerbait, but almost never caught anything on a chatterbait. I owned all the cool JDM chatterbaits, but never could catch a bass. Now that I'm back stateside, I catch a lot of bass on a chatterbait. Massachusetts bass love a chatterbait, but I had to learn that a spinnerbait and a chatterbait, while people say them in the same sentence a lot, are not the same kinds of bait. And the big thing to remember is that while we call them a chatterbait, the chatterbait's the brand name from Z-Man. They're also called vibrating jigs. So the name vibrating jig should give you some clues as to how to fish this. Yes, you can cast this out, straight retrieve it back, and you will catch bass. It will work that way. However, it's not the most efficient way. It's a jig, which means we should be touching the bottom or fishing through cover. So what I do now is actually when I'm fishing this around grass, right, I'm actually gonna reel this a lot slower than I think I have to. But the reason why I want to fish slower is not to slow down the presentation, but actually to have my chatterbait sink down slowly. When you're fishing around grass and that chatterbait's slowly sinking, once you feel the weight of that grass, that chatterbait's in that grass, then you kind of let it sit there for a second, maybe give it a few shakes, but then you want to rip that chatterbait right out. All that vibration from the blade and the flash from the blade will draw that bass in, but if that chatterbait disappears into the grass, it's going to be like, where did it go? And then all of a sudden it's going to come flying out of that grass. That's when that bass will reaction strike your chatterbait. The other way I like to fish my vibrating jigs is kind of like how I'd fish a jig. When you're fishing a jig, you like to hop your jig off the bottom. That's a great way to catch some bites on a chatterbait, especially if you have a sloping bank. Some are going from shallow to deep. Starting in the shallow and hopping that chatterbait, just letting it jump and then fall, your blade will still vibrate on that fall. And then once it's on the bottom, when you give that hop, it's almost like fishing a lipless crankbait or blade bait. That kind of lift and fall technique is a great way to get some bites. The more times you can get this chatterbait to hit something, bounce off something, will increase the chances of catching bass. That just straight retrieve was that repeating motion of just the blade going and your tail wagging may look good to a bass, but those little random changes in its movement or action is really what gets the bass activated. If you don't have much cover around you and you just have space to straight retrieve, while you're retrieving that chatterbait, try to pump your rod or give a quick turn of a reel handle to kind of make that bait flare and then stop the action so it goes crazy and then it kind of sinks back down and then back to a retrieve. And I know I didn't talk much about the chatterbaits I like or the trailers that I like. If you want to know more about that, leave a comment below or ask some questions. I'm always happy to answer. So what are you waiting for? Get out there.